Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, or good night, wherever you are. I'm having coffee, and if you're having too, so cheers to you guys, enjoy. So this is already my second cup, but it's almost empty. So what is going on in Iceland? That volcanic system seems to have some coffee as well, because it is still going. But the Icelandic MET Office has released some news today, and there has been another interesting incident in the town of Grindavik with a heavy piece of machinery, and I can tell you a crack is involved. So we'll talk about that today, but let's start with the latest from the Icelandic MET Office. So what they are saying is that it seems that the eruption has subsided a little bit, so less is coming out. There are still high levels of sulfur dioxide. There over the weekend has been a lot of stuff. It has been blown into Höfn, into the southwestern parts. It's been on its way towards Keflavik, the capital area, and of course inside Grindavik the levels were high, so the police said everyone stay out of the areas basically that are located in the hazard map that has been released from the Icelandic MET Office. So these areas of course were the most affected because closest to the eruption in the Sutnuka crater series. So high levels of sulfur dioxide over the weekend, and the concentration is considered very unhealthy because there's very small particles that can enter your lungs and they can stay there and they can cause a lot of damage. So later on, years later even, you could get lung disease. So this is not good, and especially for elderlies or people that already have pre-existing respiratory issues, that is not good. So people need to be very, very careful, and the authorities are urging people to be very cautious and really listen to the latest forecasts. And there's also a website there where they can look that up. That it is, you know, the development, it can change with the weather, with the wind. So you always have to be very, very updated about that. So the risk assessment is unchanged because basically everything is still the same. The eruption is still ongoing, and nothing has really changed. No more earthquakes, nothing, but there is still this risk of gas pollution. So in the last 24 hours, that's their assumption, is that the eruption has slowed down a little bit. They think that the activity in the craters is lower and possibly has been extinguished in the smaller craters. So we had about 7 to 8 craters, and we had 2 larger craters. You know, there was a fissure that opened at first, but because the eruption has been going on so long now, the lava accumulates outside of it, and that's why it creates these volcano-typical craters. So the 2 spots that are the most active, of course, have the highest craters. It's anything, the height I think is anything between like 16 to 20 meters, and the lava keeps spilling out of there. So the main lava flow from the craters is flowing to the south, and then it turns to the west. The lava continued to flow into the gravel pit in Melholmsnamina. I don't think I pronounced that right, and it has now filled it up completely, but the lava continues to, of course, thicken and accumulate closer to the craters the most. So the GPS measurements that they have conducted during the last few days, they indicate that the land rise in Swartsengi is still happening. So the land is rising in Swartsengi. What does that mean? We know in Swartsengi, where the power plant and the Blue Lagoon are located, we have a magma chamber underneath that is being fed by a deeper lying magma reservoir. And so it seems, although the lava is flowing out, the magma chamber is still being filled. That's why there is still land rise. But the land rise is much slower than before, but this indicates magma is still flowing in this collection area, even though we have this ongoing eruptions. So high levels of sulfur dioxide, especially in Grindavik and in Höfen have been detected the last few days. So this concentration of gas is considered very unhealthy, and it is likely that most people that are there or are close to it could experience respiratory symptoms. So that's why they're advising everyone it's important to stay indoors, close the windows, and turn off any air systems, air conditioning systems, anything that blows fresh air into the homes. Especially people need to be careful if they're working outdoors, even as far as Höfen. So we know a few days ago, an employee of the Blue Lagoon was working outside in the Blue Lagoon area with a backhoe, and then got the respiratory symptoms and needed to be hospitalized. So very, very dangerous if in these areas that they are mentioning. The labor inspectorate points out that for workers that are working outside, that companies and organizations in the southwest corner of the country need to pay close attention to the development of air quality due to the possible risk of gas pollution, especially since that incident at the Blue Lagoon happened. And the labor inspectorate is saying we advise people in the area to monitor the air quality and learn about reactions, how to react to air pollution from the volcanic eruption. So the weather forecast around the afternoon on Monday was for northeasterly winds that would blow the gases from the eruption station, so towards Grindavik. And the gas pollution did reach the southwest over Grindavik and swartsengi. And in addition to the fact that gas could be a problem near the eruptions, the wind was rather slow, so that was good. But Tuesday they expect an easterly wind, and then the pollution will travel to the west over to Höfen and Hafnir. And so during this period tomorrow, it would be possible also that the wind would be southeasterly for a while, and then pollution could be noticed in the communities of Njadvik, Keflavik, and St. Geri. So if you're in the area or planning to go to the area, people need to look at the gas forecast. The risk assessment, that map that they have released, is still unchanged, and they have made that updated statement on Monday, 3 p.m. Icelandic time, and they're saying it is valid until April 2nd if everything remains the same. No changes in the risk assessment or in the risk caused by gas pollution. And we see on the map, the risk is still very high in area 4. That's the town of Grindavik, because of the gas pollution, but also to fissures that could open, cracks that could open, sinkholes that could open. But what the Icelandic Meteorological Office is also saying, they think that the eruption is decreasing a little bit, but that it is also too early to say what this means for the future of this eruption. So they can't really say or give an estimate when this will die down. So 2 craters are still the largest, and it looks like there is just 3 other craters left from the 7 to 8 that we have. So it seems that they are stress testing roads in Grindavik. And how are they doing this? They're driving around there with really, really heavy equipment and heavy gravel tracks, like almost looking like mining equipment. And so one roadwork equipment, you know, that was transporting materials to fill crack, or maybe they were working on the defense walls. They were driving over a normal residential road, and then the machine, a crack opened because of the stress of the heavy machine, and the machine basically flipped to the side, and with its right side, it had like a trailer with 4 wheels, big wheels, and it fell into a crack that opened all over Saturn. And that's what they describe in that hazard level that they have invented, especially for Grindavik. It's like crack collapse. So imagine this gives way when a person walks there. I mean, there was already an incident in the town when a crack that had already been filled opened when a worker wanted to compact it, and the worker vanished. Hasn't been found to this day. and is assumed deceased. So another crack that had been filled opened when a plumber was just parking on a driveway and wanted to open his door and wanted to get out, and then, ooh, he saw the crack open, right? So he quickly backed out. Nothing happened, thankfully. So an officer for the public safety has commented on that incident, and it was reported that no one was harmed and that work is being done to recover the machinery. So this was a stress test that they carried out because a geodesic testing showed that there is something underneath, something like a cavity underneath that road. And that's why they used roadwork equipment that weighs about 25 to 30 tons, and they were driving over it and it gave way. So they're saying, as far as they can tell, the damage to the equipment is minor. They have explored other places as well, all throughout Grindavik, and what they're saying is in other areas, these stress tests have worked and nothing has given way so far. So they are doing something in Grindavik. Whether that makes sense or not, we will not know, because if these volcanic eruptions keep continuing, there's always earthquake swarms, some major, some minor. This time it was very, very minor, so that shouldn't have affected Grindavik too much. But these cracks can always get wider, longer, more with every event. So it's kind of, I always say, Fraggle Rock. They keep building, they keep repairing, and then next earthquake comes and then restart. Or the Sisyphus work, right? The guy that rolls the rock up on the hill, and when he almost reaches the top, it keeps rolling back down, and then he has to do it again. There is a statement from a professor of geophysics at the University of Iceland, Magnus Tumi Gudmundsson, and he says there are indications, of course he confirms, that the eruption has decreased in the last 2 days, and that there is a little bit of less activity in the main craters. But he also says that it is not possible to draw many conclusions from this as of now. This eruption has now lasted for about 10 days, and it is the 4th eruption in the Sutnuka crater series. And although it seems to have been gotten a little less, Magnus says that the GPS measurement system that the Icelandic MET Office maintains, together with the university's Institute of Geoscientists and other parties, shows that there is not a land subsidence. So basically he says there's no signs that the magma influx into the magma chamber underneath Swartsengi is slowing down, because the land there is not subsiding. So it's still rising a little bit, which indicates that although it is erupting right now and the magma is flowing out of there, that it's still refilling. So that's why he says we don't see signs that this is slowing down. What the future holds remains to be seen. And he's also saying that so far, only 15% of what came up in the eruption at Fagradalsfjall has gotten out in this eruption. So he further says it can be calculated that the amount of lava in this eruption is approaching the amount of what came out in the other 3 eruptions that we had in the same crater series. So it's definitely the largest of the 3 and the longest. But he says that there is uncertainty about the future, and he says that the eruption may end soon, but then the land rise under Swartsengi will probably start again in full force, because there are no signs that this magma that keeps flowing from a deeper magma reservoir into that magma chamber has stopped or is slowing down. So that's why it's probably going to repeat. So that's why he says the eruption could also continue for more time, for longer. he says, if we look at previous volcanic eruptions in this area, in those events, there was much more lava than what is now in this area. So it doesn't prove anything, but the way the Reykjanes Peninsula behaves and the way these eruptions have happened in the past, in the 13th century, then you have to expect that there will be a lot more magma coming up before this event or these chains of events will end. And he says we have to prepare for a long run. And that is true. If you drive through that area, I mean, it's basically hardened lava rock everywhere. So this must have come from something, right? And if we look at the aerial pictures of the current lava flows compared to where older lava flows are, it's still not that much. What he also says, he compares it to the other 3 eruptions that have already happened in the Sutnuga crater series since November 10th. And at the beginning, all these 3 eruptions were comparable to the eruptions that we have right now. They had a lot of power at the beginning, and they came up very quickly, and the fissures got longer very quickly in a very short amount of time. But this eruption that we now have did begin to slow down, but now it's flowing continuously. And that's the difference. This is completely different than what we've seen in the other 3 eruptions, the continuous lava flow. And then, of course, now the lava begins to flow completely in a different way than the other ones. It is different because also the way that lava cools will be different, and it will move more slowly because it is thicker, and we know that it has been building up layers and layers of lava. The lava has been flowing on top of its own lava carpet that it had already produced. So that's why they have to make the defense walls in Grindavik higher, because the lava has been flowing along the defense walls, and then more was coming and was flowing on top of the a little bit hardened or cooled down lava. So it was building up, getting higher instead of getting longer, proceeding longer. That's why it hasn't flown into the sea yet, because it's building on top of each other. And that behaves differently than in the last 3 eruptions, because the eruptions didn't last long enough in order to build up these lava carpets, I always call it. So that's why he is also saying if the eruption continues like this for more time, then there will be certainly a struggle to keep the lava on the right side of the defense walls. But he also says, and that's what they've been doing in the last few days, they have conducted work to raise these defense walls. So it's an active fight of these hero guys that run these heavy machine, the dozers and the excavators. They're fighting Mother Nature. They're fighting against the lava guys. So yeah, that was a quick update. And check out my video that I released earlier today about the history of Grindavik. So people of Grindavik have been slaves. It's an interesting story, and I think since we're talking about Grindavik so much and the future of Grindavik, I think it's a valuable insight to look at the past of Grindavik as well. They have been raided by pirates, and they have been held captive and have been transported as slaves to North Africa. So check out that video, guys. It's an interesting piece of history. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. And I will see you soon, guys. Bye-bye.